Okay. So once again, welcome to Evaluation as a Tool for Success with the New Jersey Council for the Humanities. We're so thrilled to have you here. So in this first session, which is Introduction to Evaluation, we're going to be talking about, guess what? Introduction to Evaluation. And we're specifically focusing on evaluation of humanities programs, since that's really what we do here at the New Jersey Council for the Humanities. Before we get into this is a program in our series called In the Weeds. And In the Weeds is a series of workshops, professional development opportunities, and convenings that are designed to provide really practical support for developing and implementing humanities programs. So they're really targeted toward organizations and individuals who are doing humanities work, particularly humanities-based organizations, to help us do our work in new ways, in better ways, to learn from each other, and to have the opportunity to really dig in deep, get in the weeds, hence the name. So this is the first, as I mentioned, in 3 parts of this evaluation series. In part 2, we'll be diving deep into methodologies. So I encourage you to come back for that program, which is 2 weeks from today. And in the final series, the final program in this series, we'll be actually creating evaluation tools. So that's really like the design to bring it all together. You are welcome to jump in and out of these sessions as best serves your particular needs for your organization. But we do recommend, if you can come back to all 3, by the end of it, you'll have a really decent draft of an evaluation for the program of your choosing. So that's our goal here, is to help you really think through that. We're going to be staying together for some preliminary learning together, stepping into breakout rooms to actually work through some questions one-on-one, and then coming back together at the end to do so. We expect this to take about an hour and 15 minutes total for today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the microphone over to my wonderful colleague, Montrell Sanders, who will be leading us through this Introduction to Evaluation program today. Montrell, it's all you.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here with you all. Just like Gigi, I'm really excited that we have a small, intimate group. I'm a big fan of small groups of people for the robust conversation. Also, please, if you have any questions, oh, somebody else is here, exciting. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me at any point. I sometimes tend to talk fast or kind of rush through ideas. So if you need any kind of clarity, please let me know. And there's also points in where we have built in for questions. So for this first one, this is really a foundational session. We're going to look at what evaluations are designed to do, and then also how to leverage them in your programs to inform your program, looking at the logic model. And then we'll give you some time to work through one on your own. Well, not on your own, we'll be with you, but all right. So what are evaluations designed to do? Evaluations are designed to gauge whether your program is achieving what it is intended to do. It's really simple, it's really easy. It gives the organization a roadmap showing where they are in time, and then helps them determine where they need to go. So imagine that you want to take a road trip from where you are now to my sunny home state of Florida. Would you just get in your vehicle and start driving? You really wouldn't. You would look at a map, or in this day and age, pop it into Google Maps and look at the destination you're taking, the major highways and the routes. You would plan out where you're going to stop and take breaks. And you would also plan out how much time you would need to do that. Evaluations essentially give you the same kind of a roadmap. They show you what exactly your program is intended to do, and then they also help you figure out where you are trying to go throughout the whole program implementation phase. So some myths behind evaluations, because evaluations tend to fall by the wayside for many organizations. And that's not to say that people don't care about evaluation, but when you're thinking about your budget, when you're thinking about the time constraints that you have, people tend to do away with them in order to have more time for their programs. But some common myths behind evaluations. Evaluations are not designed to tell you that you are a failure. For some reason, we are obsessed in this society with not being failure. We have this wrong idea that failure is bad. I myself really love failure. Failure really it gives you a chance to reevaluate. It teaches you some valuable lessons. Some of the best ways that failure work, think about recipes. Like these recipes didn't just happen overnight. Something went wrong, or something either went wrong to make that recipe better, or people learned from the recipe to improve it. So failure is not a bad thing. Evaluations help you by telling you, you can improve on X, Y, and Z things to make your program better. Another myth about evaluation is that evaluations are designed to take away your funding. This is absolutely not true. If anything, evaluations help you save your funding, because once again, you get to see where things are going wrong, how to improve them, and to get back on track so that you can report back to your funders, your grantees, what exactly went right in this program. So then how do we effectively leverage evaluations? If done correctly and timely, evaluations can be used to help guide your program from start to finish. I like to use these evaluations when I'm creating programs, when I'm doing any kind of work in my own life, because again, it gives you that roadmap, that can be used to make decisions throughout the program creation and implementation phase. So, how do we do this, Monty? How are we able to leverage these roadmaps? One of the ways that I like to do this is through the power of a logic model. Gigi, if you would, please share that picture of the lovely logic model. All right, so, so what is a logic model? Logic models are hypothesized descriptions of the chain of causes and effects leading to an outcome of interest. Basically, a logic model works on, they take the form of a graphic depiction of an if-then relationship between the various elements leading to the outcome. So we see from this model, we can see that, we have our inputs phases. The inputs are what resources are needed to be invested into the program to make it work. And then we have a series of outputs and outcomes. So the outputs are just what you plan to do, and the outcomes are what effects you think or you expect to see from what has been done. So the outputs consist of what you're going to do. Are you doing a program? Are you doing a workshop? What services do you plan to do? And then it also looks at who you're trying to reach. With this new day and age and technology that we have, a lot of things have moved over to the Zoom platform. So that's something else we need to think about when we're doing these when we're thinking about our outputs, because programs of the past were done through brick and mortar buildings. But what we have right now, we're all on this Zoom platform working through these meetings. So they really affect what can go into your outputs. And then your outcomes look at the impacts that you plan to see from the short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. So your short-term goals really look at immediately after the program to 6 months after the program to see what impact was made. Your medium-term goals tend to focus on 6 months to a year after to gauge that impact even more. And then your long-term goals looks at a year or more after the program to see what exactly has happened. When we're thinking about programs, the type of program that you're going to do also will impact what these outcomes look like. So for me, my background is in nonprofit and like public sphere evaluations. So for those, your short-term goals are really going to look at the impact of those types of programs. And the long-term goals are really going to look at how that program is still affecting communities right after. But in the realm of the humanities, these are sometimes more programmatic or museum oriented, if we're looking at it, if I'm thinking about that correctly. Yeah, they're either like, museum oriented, I'm sorry, yeah. So what is the time frame? Oh, the time frame for the short-term outcomes are usually immediately after the program to 6 months after the program. You want to see that immediate change, yeah. So yeah, so back to outcomes. If we're thinking about, if we're looking at them through the humanities lens, these are sometimes programs that look at art or culture. So the long-term and the short-term outcomes are going to look a little bit different. So the short-term outcomes are really going to look at what people have learned immediately after that program. And then your long-term outcomes are going to more focus on the organization and how the organization has impacted communities versus how programs have impacted communities. Slightly nuanced differences, but they both look at measuring the same things, how things were changed over time. All right, so we had one question. I'm sorry, yeah. So all of these are valuable. Near term, short. The near term is valuable as well as the long term. And then the amount of time to be considered under an evaluation will depend on also what is being evaluated. So again, if we're thinking about nonprofit types of evaluations, if we're looking at improving literacy among a community from this nonprofit, the time to measure that is going to be probably longer than if we were looking at how a program on 15th century art has changed the way that our culture moves. That would be something I feel like would be a shorter term evaluation. It wouldn't take as long. So I've thrown out a lot of information and there's a lot of graphics. I want to take a moment to pause for questions. We had one asking what the short term time frame was, immediately after the program to 6 months. Do we have any other questions about this logic model, about what goes into it? I also should tell you that we're going to be using this again to evaluate this evaluation session, or I guess to walk you through how we would evaluate this evaluation session. So if you have any questions pertaining to that, but I'll take a moment for questions if anyone has any. No, we're good. All right, you're rock stars. I love it. Oh, okay, perfect. So then, just to be clear, the logic model is not the only model for evaluation, but it's a good one, and it's the one that we're focusing on today. I really love logic models. I use them in my everyday life. When I was deciding on whether or not I wanted to get my doctorate degree, I used a logic model just to see what I would have to put in, what outputs I would, yeah, exactly, what outputs I would see, and then whether or not the long-term impacts, the outcomes were worth the time and effort that was going to be put into it. So you can leverage them not just in your programs, but in your everyday life. So then how can this be used in project creation? As I've been saying, and I will keep repeating this, logic models provide the blueprint for the program that you're creating. These graphics take into consideration every detail of what is needed to make a project successful and to also keep you focused on the outcomes you're trying to achieve and the signs of success and failure in reaching these outcomes. So logic models just ensure that you do some planning before you start building your evaluation. So a lot of you, I've heard, a lot of you do evaluations, a lot of you do program creation, and a lot of you are probably using the logic model without knowing that you're using the logic model. This just gives you a concrete template to use within that, so that you're really thinking about these things that are going through the logic model. Another good thing about the logic model that I like is particularly this portion over here on participation. When we're thinking about logic models and we're thinking about who we're trying to reach, the participation helps us to get to communities that we might not think about. So say we want to do a program that is trying to reach women. Well, we need to think much deeper about that. What portion of population of women are we thinking about? Are we also trying to reach women of color? Are we trying to reach disabled women? Are we trying to reach the LGBTQ population of women? This participation portion helps us to really just think about who we want to reach. I know that a lot of times when we get grant applications, we see that people want to work with X population, but little thought goes into actually who within that population is not being targeted. And so this helps you to better plan how you're actually going to get to that population or who you're trying to reach within that. All right, so.
May I jump in with just one thing really quick
Yes,
here,
please.
Monty?
Yep.
I agree with you that I think thinking about outputs in terms of both activities, but also participation is really important, particularly for humanities programs. Again, excuse me, Monty mentioned that we get our grant applications or other applications for programs, and we all want to reach broad audiences. We do. I can tell you at the New Jersey Council for the Humanities that I wish to reach a broad audience with the projects and programs that we provide. Unfortunately, trying to reach everybody all at once is usually the kiss of death for a program. It's like the most surefire way to ensure you reach very few people. So taking a little bit of time through setting goals and establishing an evaluation protocol can really help you think through some of those questions about who your priorities are for reaching and how they can be integrated into your project goals, and so on and so forth. Sam, you have your hand raised. Can I turn it over to you?
Yeah, I actually learned how to use these little things. So one of the things that I'm a logic model, and we're very linear, I think most of us in our thinking, and certainly in our society, we're very linear in terms of things. And very often, just like this one does, because we're not Chinese or whatever, we're going from left to right. We're going from what we're doing to the, outputs, the results. But sometimes it helps to think the reverse. In other words, and I'm thinking here about what you just said, Gigi, if one of the outcomes we want is to reach a different audience or so on, sometimes we think we are going to start with the inputs and work to work, but really sometimes it helps to think backwards, to sort of think, I want to reach, as you said, Monty, women of color. So what do I have to offer them? What are my methods of outreach? Begin to think about all the pieces that are in the logic model that sort of dissect, how am I getting to there? So sometimes we design a program because we like it, we think it'll be fun, we enjoy it, it's something we know about, we feel comfortable doing it. And so then we sometimes create the logic thinking from that, rather than flipping it and saying, what should our organization, or what are our important goals that we want to have? And are we set up? What do we need to do to reach those goals? Just a thought, because I think I know myself at the Trent House, there are a lot of things I love to do. And so I often do them without thinking the reverse about what does this organization need and how should I get there?
No, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. For this logic model, yes, you can start at any point that you would like to. Outcomes, you can start with outputs, inputs. It's largely, the logic model is an iterative process. This is a living, breathing document that will change multiple times throughout your program, throughout your organization. And so Sam is absolutely right. Yes. Sometimes it is best to start at the end with what you expect to happen and work back towards how you want to see that happen. Sometimes it's good to start just from the beginning of what you'd like, what you have to put into it, especially for smaller organizations when you don't have a large or robust budget. What do I have to offer that I can put in, and how can I leverage that to make outcomes? And you just keep going back and forth for your outcomes to inform your outcomes to inform your outputs and your inputs, and vice versa. Yes, by all means, this is not it's not a one and done process. You will refer back to this over and over and over again. I think in the process, we're about to show you one it's very crude, but it was changed a couple of times over and over and over again, just in making an example for you all. So yes, Sam, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Absolutely, any place that you would like to start, please start there. And especially in thinking about these populations, because with some of the programs that we look at, like Sam was saying, what do you have to offer that population? Is your program inclusive? If you're a humanities organization who is looking at, I keep picking on 15th century literature, but if you're doing 15th century literature and you want to attract people of color to this audience, are you looking at diverse people who were also publishing literature then? Or are you sticking to this one canon of literature that is very exclusionary? These are little things that you can think about as you're looking at your activities and whether those match your goal or not. So perfect. Gigi, you just shared a document. I don't know.
I did. I just shared, I meant to do it sooner, apologies. It's this logic model. I'm going to share the materials that we're sharing on the screen here throughout the program. We'll also be sending these out to you after the program, and they'll be available on the website. So this is not the last opportunity you have to get these documents, but I wanted to make sure you have access to it beyond this very moment.
Okay, perfect, yes.
Any other thoughts or questions for now?
Okay, all right, so then if you would share the next document of our logic model of how to evaluate this evaluation session.
This was fun. There we go. Mati and I wanted to find a fun way for us to talk through in a sort of like quick way how you can go through one of these models. I'm sorry, I'm just having a moment talking. Evaluation workshop logic model. There we go. Share that screen. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Great.
Yes. All right. So then for the record, we also created a template of this logic model for you. You would not believe how hard it is to find one, and even more so how hard it is to make one of these. So we've saved you the trouble and the labor, and we've made it for you. So then in thinking about evaluating this evaluation session, we're really trying to think through like what we wanted out of this and what we needed to put into this to make it happen. So as we've stated, we could have started anywhere. We could have started with the outcomes of what we wanted to see happen, or we could start with the inputs. So in thinking about things differently, let's start backwards. So we're gonna look at the outcomes. If you scroll up, Gigi, scroll up just a little tiny bit. Oh no. Sabotage.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. What's the issue? You can't see which part of it do you need?
The bottom. We can't see the
Get
bottom.
to the bottom. Yes.
Yeah, where the.
Certainly. Let's see if I can do this better. You still can't see the bottom?
No. Maybe if you try to, it's the thing on the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
You getting there now?
There we go.
There we go.
All right, that's perfect.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. So then looking at what we wanted, thinking about what we wanted to see happen from this evaluation session, we'll start with the outcomes to show how this can work backwards or forwards. So for the short-term goals over here in this corner, which would happen immediately after the program, whether it's this first one or the third one, up to 6 months, what we would like to see, or we want to see, is participants gain an understanding of evaluations, a foundational understanding, that participants leave with a start to their evaluation plan, which will be phase 3 when we create one together, and then participants understand different methodologies used in evaluation. So that looks at all 3 sessions. This is showing just basically what we would like to see immediately after our program ends. Nothing too crazy, very simple. And for this session, we're not focusing on methodology. That'll be the next session. But within that next session, we will also come back to looking at these outcomes to show how the outcomes will inform your evaluation protocol through the methodologies combined. But that's what we want to see immediately after. And then for our medium-term goals, which are 6 months to a year after this program, we want to see that participants are able to recall basic facts about evaluation, that participants have formed their evaluation, and that participants are utilizing evaluation to inform future programs. And then for our long-term goals, which are a year to 5 years after this program, we want to see that participants have deeper understanding of evaluations, participants have used evaluation results to adjust programs within their own organization, and that participants have continued to utilize evaluation to inform future programs. So with this, you can kind of see the gears turning on. Well, if this is what we want to see, how do we measure this? That's what the next session is about with methodology. What methods should you use to evaluate based on what you're trying to see, whether they're quantitative or qualitative. I won't spoil it. We will get there, I promise. But it's a bag of fun. It's a bag of fun. So then from these outcomes, if we want to see all this happen, we go back over here to the outputs. So what activities do we need to do to see that these things come to fruition? We need to do the introduction to evaluation, the evaluation activities, and then one-on-one consultations will help to ensure that these things happen. And then who we're trying to reach. So humanities organizations, university partners, individuals who do humanities work. And even within this, We could have gone a bit deeper to think about what kinds of organizations. So do we want, within the university partners, do we just want predominantly white institutions? Are we trying to target HBCUs? Are we trying to target minority serving institutions? Are we trying to target R1s, R2s, things of that nature? Same things for humanities organizations and for individuals who do work. What are the nuances? Who are we trying to reach that are underrepresented within this work? And then the inputs, they're simple. We need instructors to run this program. It would be nice if we were at that phase where we could just beam knowledge to everyone, but we haven't quite gotten there yet. I'll be glad when we do. It'll make school so much easier. We need a Zoom platform. This is what I was referring to earlier. If we weren't doing this on Zoom, then we would have to think about the building. We'd have to think about chairs, the room, those types of things. We need your presenter honorariums. If you're having someone who is presenting, are you compensating them? Are they volunteering? How are you going to get them to donate their time? The logic model templates, and then time. Time is another resource that we always need to account for when we're doing this. You know, some people are very busy. So if we're giving up an hour and 15 minutes, we need to make sure that we're budgeting just that hour and 15 minutes so that people can go back. And so, as I said, this is an iterative process. So thinking about the activities, the inputs, the activities and the outputs that we're doing, will those help to inform these outcomes that we'd like to see? Same for our outcomes. Are these outcomes going to be able to be achieved by using these outputs and activities that we're trying to do here? So this document will be revised again and again and again after this session. We'll go back and look to see if we're on track, if we're achieving that, those types of things. Yeah, so we're good there. All right.
I think the most valuable thing I've learned so far in evaluation, particularly using something like a logic model or other methodology for planning out what I want to evaluate, is it's the moment to stop and really think that through and think about how, because very often I have to be honest with you, I've been doing humanities work for a long time. I come from the museum field prior to coming here to the council, and I tend to jump way ahead in this. I say, I know what I want people to learn. Let me start thinking about my survey questions. Let me start thinking about pulling together a focus group, whatever it is. I jump immediately to that instead of taking the time to think about this and to go through this process, which might actually help me really refine what my goals are for this program, right? So when we were talking about even this sort of like slightly silly version that we put together here, thinking about what we want to see immediately versus what we want to see in 6 months to a year versus what we want to see in one to 5 years were really different goals, and really helped me to break that down in what I think were ultimately helpful ways. I've been talking too much. Sam, you had your hand up.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk too much either, but one of the things that just occurred to me was, you know, we sometimes think of the participants as the recipients, but they're also bringing things. And I'm thinking here just about our own group. So some of the inputs are what the participants are bringing, either their experience or their interests or whatever. And so we need to, I mean, I'm thinking about how, as you are putting something together and you think about who you're going to try to recruit, maybe some of your recruitment is going to be specific because you want to build on what the participants will bring. Just like this is building on, everyone here is interested in humanities, so they have a particular, you know, interest area and a particular maybe way of thinking. So I just think that's interesting to think about, you know, not the people we're trying to engage, not just as our recipients of our stuff, but also contributing to what we're doing.
Absolutely, yes, I completely agree with that. Just like today, I'm glad that we have another person who actually does evaluations here, because you're helping to keep me on track and giving me new ideas about ways to do this. It's a good time, yes. And that also goes into thinking about your programming, yes. How you plan to get the information out there. Is it a round table versus a panel type session versus a discussion session? It all depends on who's in the group, who's going to be there. So absolutely, absolutely.
100%. You know that this is a drum that I bang all the time, Sam, and I'm glad you're banging it too. That yes, absolutely, absolutely, sharing knowledge. Also, I'm calling myself out on this. Nicole was kind enough to remind us in the chat that no one's speaking too much, that talking about this is exactly what we're here for today. And I'm not going to apologize for it again. Say anything you wish to say, ask any questions you wish to ask. We have plenty of time. Great.
Excellent.
Can I stop sharing the screen? Are we good now?
Yes, we're good on this screen.
Okay. I mean, there are limits. Great point, Nicole. Share as much as you wish within limits. Exactly.
Yes. So then
I'm going to share both the blank logic model and the example that we just provided with you in the chat as well.
Yes, excellent. And then we're right on track. So again, we've shared a lot of information. So does anybody have any questions? Because the next portion of this session is to go into breakout rooms and really start working on these logic models, trying to fill them in. And Gigi and I will both be with you in one or the other room to help you think through these things. So yeah, so does anyone have any questions about what we've shared so far? Whether you want to put them in the chat or say them out loud, I welcome questions, because again, I kind of go quickly, and I know this stuff, but like I kind of take for granted that like I think everyone else knows this stuff, and that I'm just repeating information to friends. So
both the evaluation workshop logic model and the blank logic model template should be in the chat for you if you wish to open up those documents for your own use now or later.
Excellent. All right, then let's move into the hand. Oh.
Where was this all my life? You're so kind, Nicole. A blank logic model template. That's all you needed.
I'm telling you, the decisions that you can make from a logic model, they will save you so much money, so much time, so much headache. It's a great tool to have.
He's a true believer. I'm going to pause our recording.
Yes.
Okay, so welcome back, everybody. Let's see, Monty, do you want to start with your room if anybody wants to share your discussions?
So I didn't put pressure on my room. I told them if they'd like to, they could. But there was a lot of good and robust discussion about, I guess, thinking through the final outcomes. We took Sam's advice and started with the outcomes to inform, you know, what should be done, who we're trying to reach. And then we focused. Kathleen was gracious enough to let us use her project as a focus. So we talked through a lot of the things that she would like to see done from her program. She's looking at, you know, the history of shores and how we can disseminate that information to tourists as well as new residents who are moving there because of COVID. And not even just disseminating the history, but looking at some of the cemeteries and also just teaching people to clean up behind themselves, which is something that's, it's a big thing that we as adults need to learn, because for some reason, you know, we were good at it as kids, and then you turn 18 and you just forget to clean up things around you. So yeah, that was a lot of our discussion. I don't know if Kathleen wants to add anything about that. Like I said, I didn't put any pressure on anyone, but it was really good for us to talk through what her outcomes were and how she could inform that through the activities. And then there was some good skill sharing. We shared some stuff about QGIS. Nicole shared another resource that looks at mapping. Mapping is where we landed, so it was nice. It was collaborative.
Excellent. For my group, Sam or Princess, do you want to fill in a little bit what we were talking about?
Well, I would love for Sam to go ahead and speak on our behalf.
Yeah, Princess needs to save her voice. So we started with Princess's articulated a goal of having our programs. We give a lot of talks and other kinds of programs on site and virtual, um, be more broadly attended by a much more diverse audience. And by that we mean we give them like a talk on what you might think of as a traditional topic for a historic house, you know, something about colonial history, which is, you know, our 1719, or Revolutionary War history. And then we give other talks that are about things like the AME Church in Trenton, or the Jewish neighborhood that was across the street during the 1800s and early 1900s. And each one of those tends to draw a specific kind of audience. And we aren't seeing merging of those audiences. We're not seeing that people are seeing value and interest in the other topic, the topic that they aren't immediately drawn to. So we began to think about how what we needed to do to make that happen. And one of the things we decided was that we need to both do some internal work. Thank you, Gigi, for helping us see that. We have internal work to do and we have external work to do. Our internal work needs to be around figuring out what are the themes and what are the topics, and how do we become more intentional in picking our speakers and working with them to help them understand that we want them to draw out common themes. We want them to draw out potential ways in which their topic has relevance today and relevance to other periods of history, how it informs that, and really work with our speakers around that, and to organize these themes and sessions, and maybe even a series, as Gigi suggested. Then our external work is we need to somehow communicate that to the people that we're trying to, you know, in our publicity and in our Facebook posts or whatever we're doing that is trying to encourage people to look at what we have to offer, to really say this is going to be an opportunity not only to learn about this particular topic, but to really get a sense of how that piece of history connects with today, connects other pieces of history. So, you know, come and really learn that, you know, no, it's not an esoteric, it happened then, check it off. It really has applicability today. So we're hoping we have a couple of opportunities with consultants to work on those things. So it gives us a real direction to go.
That's outstanding, Sam and Princess. We were having a great conversation, and yeah, as I said in our breakout room, I could listen to Sam and Princess just talking about what the Trent's House mission and vision for hours. I'd gladly be a fly on that wall anytime to just listen to these very generative, helpful discussions about how they can continue to do their work well and do it better in the future. It was just great. I'm sure the conversation in Monty's room was equally as wonderful.
Yes.
So thank you all for jumping in and into these questions with 2 feet and saying, let's talk it through and figure out where we're going. Okay, Monty, is there anything else that you wanted to bring up to the full group before I wrap us up for the day?
I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot. There was good information. The main things, as I've said, this is an iterative process, so you're going to be doing this over and over and over again. With respect to the participants and looking at the nuances of that, don't hyper-focus or get bogged down in that. You can't reach everyone. It's good that you try, and it's good that you put some thought into it, but you could set up the best program with the most inclusive aspects of it, and people just won't show up, So be sure to be inclusive and thinking through these things, but don't get bogged down in the weeds about who you're going to reach. Yeah, and then yes, please come back. Next time we'll talk about methodologies. And Sam, I think you really like that when we talk about the traditional methodologies, surveys, interviews, all that good stuff. And then some of the untraditional ones, space, observational methods. Like I said, I come from a nonprofit public administration background and evaluation. So this has been fun for me to learn the different ways that like museums and other organizations evaluate, and just the little things that we don't think about that really influence those things. So it'll be a good time. It'll be a good time. All.
Great. Tell us again what that date is so we make sure it's on our calendars.
I was just going to say, first thing I'm going to do is put the link to session 2, the Eventbrite where you can register for session 2 if you have not done so already, is in the chat. It is called Data Collection Methods. So, getting right into the nitty gritty on that one. And that session, I'm going to open it up so I don't misread the date. That would be just like me. It's 2 weeks. So that's May 10th. It's a Tuesday also at 11 a.m. Same bat time, same bat location here on Zoom. We hope to see you again. We do encourage you to bring back whatever project, program, or idea that you had that you started working on in this session, or might start working on right after this session. Bring that back, and we can talk about how different methods of evaluation might get you toward your goal. I know in a lot of cases, there's a lot of different ways. Like, we're going to have to come at this from a few different angles. So actually thinking through multiple ways that you could evaluate your program might be a good way to think about what you're going to do first, what you might do second, what you might do third. What methodology would work for you in a short-term sense, in a longer-term sense, and in a still longer-term sense. Short-term, mid-term, long-term.
I'm going to have to apologize to everyone because I'm fully committed on that day with.
Oh no.
So please record it. And,
we will record it.
And Monty, I'll probably want to pick your brain afterwards, after I listen to the recording.
Right. So, Sam, you have, well, first of all, I'm very sorry we will miss you on May 10th. We will definitely miss you. But may I also recommend to all of you that you do, in fact, reach out to Mr. Sanders, soon to be Dr. Sanders himself. One of the things we're offering for anyone who participates in this evaluation series, and participating counts as being here in the room or watching videos or just coming to us afterward, is to actually schedule a one-on-one conversation with Monty while he's here for his internship. So that's basically between now and the end of July.
Okay.
And I'm going to put his, again, in the chat, I'm going to put his email address here so that you can get in touch with him directly, msanders@njhumanities.org. You can also always reach me as well. And even if you don't get this down, my bio and all of my contact information is on our website on an ongoing basis. So if you have any trouble getting in touch with us, please do reach out. As I mentioned, the recording and all affiliated materials for this program will be available. We're going to send them out to everybody who registered. We are going to, and they'll be posted on our website on an in-process new page. It is not on the website yet, but it will be shortly. If you go to njhumanities.org, there's a section called Programs. And very soon, by the end of this week, you will see a page called In the Weeds, where you'll be able to access this program as well as sign up for future programs, see what's going on, access even more past programs there. But we're going to keep that as an ongoing resource for people as we continue developing these capacity building, skill sharing opportunities. Related to that, as I mentioned, Session 2 is coming up on May 10th. Session 3 is coming up on May 24th. That's going to be, how you bring this all together, right? Actually creating finalizing your evaluation protocols and evaluation methodologies for this particular for whatever particular program you have selected. And then in June, I don't have exact dates yet. We're still finalizing the program, but in June, we're going to be doing a 2-part program about how to create and implement hybrid humanities-based programs. So this is programs that take place both in a virtual and in-person space. So it's a particular challenge and one that's hitting a lot of us right at this moment. Yeah. So more to share about that. We welcome your ideas and suggestions for In the Weeds programs. We really want to be responsive to the communities that we serve in helping to provide answers to your questions, or at least asking those questions in community where we can learn from each other. So if you have a good idea for a program, please do reach out to me or to programs@njhumanities.org with suggestions. I cannot tell you how much we would really love your suggestions from that. So if there are any final questions, Monty and I are going to stick around for a minute, for a couple of minutes actually. And so if there are any last minute questions, please stay. But it was great to have you here. Thanks for participating so generously. And we'll see you again on May 10th or soon thereafter. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.